How's it going? Welcome back to a very special video today because we are looking at another unique and creative video game, and that's just something that I wish I could say more often. And I'm just happy that we're getting games like this because recently we've got Split Fiction. If you haven't played that game, I highly recommend that you do because it's absolutely fantastic. And now we're getting South of Midnight. South of Midnight is a narrative-driven platformer with some light combat here and there. And although the gaming industry right now is in a bit of a sticky situation, you could say,
only the sticky parts left.
The good thing is we are getting more AA games releasing, and a lot of the people that were working on AAA video games are now moving over to create their own studios to do more AA experiences. Now, these developers worked previously on We Happy Few, and that game had some crazy ideas. I really love it because basically it was like Clockwork Orange, as if it was a video game. That's the closest thing we're ever gonna get, let's be honest. But sadly the execution wasn't there, and it did fail for many people, and I myself never actually finished it because it just didn't grab me. And since Moneybags over here,
At least I died rich and happy.
Xbox has taken these developers, and since then they have been working on South of Midnight. And there was a recent stop-motion animation game that came out on Game Pass like last year, I think it was, like Harold's Journey or something like that. But sadly that just didn't perform well, and I have to say that I don't think that this is going to perform well, even though this is actually a great experience. So today I'm going to be giving you my South of Midnight review, my South of Midnight early review, based on everything that I've actually got to see so far and what I can talk about with the early access coverage. You have to remember that this is going to be a 12-hour or so experience, maybe 15 hours depending on how much you explore and stuff like that and how much you just want to soak in that atmosphere. But this is a very lean experience, you know, stripped down to the bones, okay? But that's the point. This is a focused experience and is trying to tell a unique story, and sometimes that's refreshing. We don't always want big bloated open worlds. Sometimes, if you're like me, you just want to go through a story that's satisfying, that you feel like you got something out of it narrative wise, and you know, maybe it teaches you something or you learned something about yourself, like morality wise or philosophy wise, like where you stand. If a good narrative can do that, then it's impactful, or even if it just has an emotional weight to it. I wouldn't say it's very deep, it's not an RPG or anything like that where it's going to make you question yourself, but what it does do is it has a lot of side characters, a lot of mini stories for you to discover, and in many ways this game reminds me most of Vampire, which is a game I absolutely love, even though it's not an RPG. I'll talk about that more later with the combat comparison, and Ghost of New Eden. It's a very stripped back experience, but it's trying to tell an emotional story, and it does do it pretty well if you ask me. And of course this is set in the Bayou, okay? And you can expect to be fighting some crazy monsters, and it has such a unique lore and mythology to it because we don't get many games set in that unique setting. So I'm very excited to give you my South of Midnight review, and let's get into it. And if you are interested in this game after watching my South of Midnight review and you haven't got it already, why not get it at a huge discount using my link down below. So here we are back on the wonderful Instant Gaming store, okay? As we take a look at South of Midnight, so here you can see that you can get it for PC or Xbox X or Xbox S for already a huge discount at 28% off, so almost 30% off for only $32.49, which is crazy. So basically, if you want to play this game early, I highly recommend that you do this. You can also get it on Steam at 21% off, which again is nuts, and you can find out all the information for the game here. I can't stress enough just how much Instant Gaming has truly saved me so much money, to be honest. And I'm so glad that some of you wise ones are now using Instant Gaming, because why would you pay full price when there are platforms like Instant Gaming? In fact, I only know of Instant Gaming that actually do this, that give you huge discounts on new games coming out, not just older games, which you can find huge discounts for as well, but new games coming out. And like I said, we have to support developers that are doing, creative and unique things, like Split Fiction, because it has a massive 20% off already, and you only need to buy it once to play it with someone else. And I'm having so much fun with this game at the moment. It's probably my game of the year so far. It's just incredible. So I highly recommend that you get this game as well if you're curious. And you know that you can trust Instant Gaming because the whole community behind it is also just awesome. You can track how much you're saving, you can deck out your own profile and just interact with the community, see what people are saying about the games. It's just so streamlined and, simple to use. The best thing about it as well is it highlights, indie games as well, which you can get huge discounts on. But then again, why pay full price for Game Pass when you can get it at a huge discount on Instant Gaming? Because, like I said, it doesn't just cover new games, it covers all of your gaming needs. So you can buy Xbox Game Pass for, 1 month or 6 months or 12 months, depending on their, availability. And it's one of those things that you just need to keep an eye out for because they always have amazing deals, like weekly deals, trending offers, and all that kind of stuff. So use Instant Gaming for all of your gaming needs and for huge discounts. Use my link, Wise Ones, down below because only a wise one knows how to save money. Thank you for Instant Gaming for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the South of Midnight review. Support developers that are pushing an artistic vision that I really do support. Innovation in the gaming industry is what we need. So support them, buy the game using the discount, and it's a win-win and you help support the channel. So thanks very much. Now this game is actually made on the Unreal Engine 4, not Unreal Engine 5, and to be honest that's not a bad thing because Unreal Engine 5 at the moment is still rather janky, and yes, any game made on this engine is going to have some stutters, so be prepared for that, but it is slightly more polished than the new Unreal Engine, and it looks absolutely incredible. Just the art style of this game is insane. And I know some people are worried about playing this game as in, it's a combat focused game, but it's using the stop motion animation kind of style to it. But luckily you can actually turn that off in the gameplay settings, so it only affects cinematics, not the actual gameplay. Alrighty, so now let's get into the positives and negatives of this South of Midnight review. And if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. Go down below right now and subscribe. It would mean more than you could possibly know, to be honest. I don't think people understand that YouTube, okay, you have to live and breathe this goddamn existence. I'm forever trapped in content creation purgatory, okay, and this is my life. So it honestly does mean absolutely everything to me if you do subscribe to the channel to help build up this community. It's going to become something great this year, and if you can be on the ground floor with me as one of the troops, I would appreciate it. So join the Savior community, become a wise one today. So let's get straight into this so let's get straight into the news. I forgot to take my medicine today. The first positive out of the positive and negatives, and of course that is the art style. Okay, the art style is simply incredible. It reminds me of kind of a Telltale aesthetic, but with stop motion animation and less shading, but there is still a lot of shading to the environment and the characters, but it just looks absolutely incredible. The detail here, it's very Jim Henson. I know everyone today now is identifying with all kinds of things, all kinds of genders, but I myself, I identify as a Skeksis. Just the amount of detail within the characters themselves, the animations, and when they do stop motion animation, it looks absolutely fantastic. The kind of hands-on feel to it, the puppets and all that kind of stuff. I don't actually know if they're scanning in puppets like they have done with previous games. That would be really impressive, or if it's just made to look like that, with the animation effect. But either way, it's very convincing and it looks incredible, and it's actually very fluid in the gameplay itself. It's 60 FPS for Xbox, and doesn't matter Xbox S or Xbox X. You also have to remember South of Midnight Game Pass is going to be a huge positive for this game, because this is very much an artistic vision, an artistic game. I was about to say autistic then, but to each their own. But this game will not perform well, I don't think, because it's not a multiplayer combat heavy experience. It's much more of a narrative experience. So for people who are unsure, you can try it out on Game Pass. That is a huge win. But I really do encourage that the people who like this type of game support it, otherwise it just won't do well. The next positive is just the story itself. Obviously I can't speak to all of it, only the hands-on stuff that I've actually seen. But basically, the story in this is you're looking for your mother, okay? Very Fallout inspired, except it's not your daddy, it's your mummy now. But the only difference is this, and then this is basically just a setup for you to experience this crazy dreamscape world, very similar to like Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole. But what's cool about this is it's really designed in a kind of storybook way, because each boss is like its own different mythology based around an actual real world, story, and then come to life. And then also within the story itself, you meet side characters, and each side character has their own kind of trauma or personal story that you have to uncover. And that's why I say it reminds me of Ghost of New Eden, another great AA game. So it's very much that kind of storytelling, and I just think it works very well in this, because you don't have a set of characters, but the stories themselves are the emotional pool here, and then it's how the character that you play as reacts to the world around them. And she's not annoying for once. The next positive is, of course, the sound design. You've probably heard other people gush about it, but it's just absolutely incredible. What I love about it is it reminds me of good old games that they just don't do anymore. I don't know why. As a music producer myself, who've actually made soundtracks for a few games, a few indie games, it's not difficult if you are actually a music producer and you know what you're doing, or at least you claim to know what you're doing, but it just has stopped within gaming, and it really makes me sad. And it really makes me sad because that was something I absolutely loved. That's something that got me into music production to begin with, was when I was a child, playing games like Jak and Daxter. So it's called dynamic soundtracks, okay? And basically what it is, for example, if your character is doing a certain action in the game, so basically it's a layered soundtrack. So whatever's happening around you dynamically in the environment, it will change the soundtrack and it will just add layers to it. And the way it works in this game is when you're approaching a boss, it will, slowly ramp up the soundtrack, and it will get more and more intense, more and more layers. Very sad times. But yeah, I mean, every game has some negatives, okay? But I would say that this one is the platforming, okay? The platforming in this is so simplistic. We have seen it before, where you grapple, towards a certain platform. You summon, a platform to become solid, so you can jump on it, you can glide, you can do wall running, all of this kind of stuff. But the thing is, we've seen it evolve so much, especially in recent games like Split Fiction, where it's so dynamic and so random that it makes it fun again. Or really precise platforming in other games like Mario. This isn't obviously anything like that. It's very much that kind of AAA experience of platforming where it feels almost like it's on rails and you can't really fail, to be honest. So it's not bad, but it's a nice way to break up the gameplay, I guess. I would much rather more interesting mechanics in between, because platforming as a kind of break point in games is just kind of boring at this point, unless if you do it in a really special way. I would much rather see something like unique puzzles or exploration features, but sadly it doesn't do that, so that's why I'm giving it a negative. The next thing is, of course, just for performance issues, so sometimes it does stutter, so that is a slight negative, and some texture pop in here and there, but they might have already patched that out. And to keep it going with the negatives, okay, let's get them out of the way, shall we? Basically, what I don't like about this is the bosses, okay? The bosses themselves are one of the main highlights of this game, but sadly, they are so obvious and so clearly telegraphed that it becomes pretty boring. It's a nice spectacle, but it's not interesting gameplay wise, and that feels very weird when the combat itself is actually quite satisfying and the combat itself is difficult, but the bosses are basically, almost cutscene-esque, where it's so obvious what you have to do, and it's not a proper boss in that regard, where it requires a lot of skill. So now let's talk about the big thing that everyone wants to know about, and that's the combat, okay? The combat in this game is actually good, surprisingly. It's simple, but it's good. And if you've never played this game, I'm going to talk about it on my channel because it's one of my favorite games of all time, actually. I just haven't ever talked about it because no one cares about it. But if you haven't played this game, it's called Vampire, okay? It was a game that came out a couple of years ago, very underrated. But the combat, it's made by the same people who made The Banishers of New Eden. But anyway, the game itself is very similar to that with its combat, okay? So basically you have these abilities, not many of them, but you have these abilities that you can swap in between. And basically they are on cooldown, so it's all about time management, okay? It's all about when you activate these abilities within the combat itself. So you need to be constantly on the move, dodging, you know, biding your time before you can unleash one of these abilities. So it's very much that same type of combat in Vampire, okay, or Vampire, whatever you want to call it, and it just works. It works very well. The difficulty spike is noticeable. It is difficult for combat, but it's not Souls inspired. You do have to dodge around a lot, but it is difficult, okay? And it's just, you know, very simple. Unleash an ability, do some basic, you know, kind of spammy attacks, and just take down the enemies that way slowly over time. But it is very, you know, frantic because it keeps you on your feet constantly, and you have to really think about, you know, the best time to unleash an ability and the timing and all that kind of stuff. Grapple the enemies towards you. It's just simple, but it's satisfying, and it just works. So overall, what I really love about this game, what it does best, is the mini side stories, okay? You know, figuring out what's happened here in this kind of strange land, piecing together different stories, meeting unique side characters. The overall narrative can be disjointed at times, but it might all come together. Like I said, this is a South of Midnight early review, not based on the full experience. But honestly, I just really love the vibes so far. Just the visuals are incredible, the audio design is great, the combat is fun, the in-between moments are quite boring, I've got to admit, like the platforming stuff. But overall, I think the experience is great, and it's short. It doesn't overstay its welcome if it really is that long. So it always feels like it's going somewhere. It doesn't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, which I really like. So I would highly recommend South of Midnight if you like that type of experience. If you only want a combat-focused experience, or a game that isn't, you know, narrative based, then definitely do not play this game. But if you're looking for a good single player traditional game, similar to the games we got back in the Xbox 360 era and, you know, that kind of time, then I highly recommend South of Midnight. And there you go, my wise ones, that is the South of Midnight review. I truly hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are considering getting it and you want to play it early, make sure to use my link down below on Instant Gaming to save yourself some money, support me, support the developers. It would be great of you to do that. And subscribe if you are new and you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day, peace out.